Crypto is absolutely ripping towards the upside right now. And this piece of news from Grayscale is absolutely insanely exciting, especially for the likes of XLM and XRP, as well as that HBar. And I think we are literally between 2 and 3 weeks away from moving into an explosive growth phase in the crypto market. And I'm going to show you proof of that in this video. Hit the like button. Let's do it, guys. Look at what has just gone on in Bitcoin. In the last kind of hour or so, we've seen Bitcoin ripping up, currently sat at around $26,500. That's because of this recent piece of news that Grayscale has won a lawsuit against the SEC. Grayscale is one of the larger funds associated with cryptocurrency, and it's basically saying the SEC was wrong to reject an application for spot Bitcoin ETF exchange traded fund, and that it must be reviewed again. And you're like, well, what's the big deal? We know that the narrative pushing forward crypto at the moment is the concept that an ETF may well get approved sooner rather than later for BlackRock. Maybe it comes from Grayscale, maybe it comes from someone else. This is a move in the right direction. But guys, I'm here to tell you something that's going to absolutely blow your mind. Back in the 1920s, I know, story time. Get yourself a cup of tea. Back in the 1920s, there was a guy called Richard Wyckoff who worked on Wall Street, and this guy was pretty smart. He figured out that the big Wall Street money was doing some pretty shady shit. And he realized that if you could understand the certain patterns that they were creating, these patterns occurred over and over again, and it allowed you to understand what the big money was doing. And if you can understand what the big money is doing, then you can start to make gains yourself. Something very interesting that I learned the other day is it only takes around 400 Bitcoin to move the price of Bitcoin 1%. And you're like, wow, that's not very much. 1% of Bitcoin is actually quite a lot, okay? 400 Bitcoin is, by grand scheme of things, not that much. So that means that it's very easy to manipulate the price. The news comes in and we're supposed to believe that the price pumps because of the news. The price was going to pump anyway. The news is just brought in as the cover story for why it really pumped. Here's the real reason. You want to see? This is the total crypto market cap. Richard Wyckoff, remember, showed us a pattern that the market will follow every time before it starts to move towards the upside. Let's have a click. Let's bring that transparency back. Here we go. Now what I've done here, because I'm very techie and smart, is I've put on the back the accumulation schematic, the Wyckoff events. Notice after we get a crash towards the downside, it goes through a number of different phases, and then eventually it will come out the other end into phase E, which is basically the next leg up. Look at where we come. Down, SC, we bounce, we come up. We then come up into the AR, we come back down into this ST in B phase, or whatever it is, phase B. And then look, it rolls across into where we are, LPS. I think we're in LPS, which means phase C, from where we're looking at it now, is going to be finishing around the 25th of September, which is less than a month away. 3 weeks away, which is what I was talking about earlier. I think that right now we're starting to see LPS gaining structure. And I think that we're going to be bouncing up towards the upside, guys. So why specifically is that such massive news for the likes of XLM and XRP and Bitcoin and every crypto? What we've been seeing right now, guys, is Bitcoin obviously having a good rally towards the upside. But what I want to talk about and why I think this is so key is this piece of news has got something very significant because it's to do with the SEC. And we think about which coins have really struggled because of the SEC more recently. XRP. Remember, the narrative is what the news is saying. But the deep down kind of what is really going on behind the scenes is that big money is just basically creating a story and they will just buy and sell crypto when it suits. And you will see that news comes in and it will seem to perfectly line up with the chart patterns. And that's because this is all being manipulated. So what we can see right now, XRP takes a bounce. But notice, XRP took a bounce out of an area that previously it took a bounce from. No brainer. So what basically happens is big money accumulates in areas, like buy zone areas. Then the news is brought across to kind of give you the idea that it's only moving because of the news. This is so foolish. Because if you can kind of forget about the news and stop worrying about all these pieces of news and information and these apparent narratives, and I'm waiting for this piece of news before this happens, and I'm waiting for this, then you can realize all you got to do is the opposite of what big money is trying to get people to do. Okay? It's not a conspiracy theory, right? Stick by the Earth being round. Sorry. Maybe you think the Earth back into it. What we can see, guys, right? if you can stop looking at the news, I mean, keep the news there because maybe it's interesting. Maybe you like to find out that BitBoy and all that stuff. I actually feel quite sorry for him, so I'm going to get into that. But if you can understand that fundamentally these patterns play out over and over again, and they're playing out because this is the price movement. This is people's behavior. These price movements aren't linked to the news, and you might be like, oh, well, this was the thing that was something to do with Binance, and this is when Binance actually lost this, and then that was Coinbase, and then that was I don't know, whatever happened last week that no one can remember. I can't even remember what happened last week. What we are looking at right now is I think Bitcoin could well be about to have a leg up into this area. If it bounces again, maybe that happens. Maybe this happens. But ultimately, all we need to know is that crypto is very much not attached to the news. It's attached to big money manipulation. And this big money manipulation doesn't care whether the stock market is going to do this and the macro doesn't look good and the inflation might be coming up. And September is usually a red month for Bitcoin because it has been the last 3 times out of 4. And all these things. And then I saw a black cat and it was bad luck and all these other things, right? It's rubbish. Fundamentally, you just need to understand the games that are happening behind the scenes. And this is why the likes of XRP and XLM and I think HBar, which have seen good growth recently but have just been sold off very, very quickly, are the coins really that are at the center of most of the excitement right now. And that's what has me very excited for what is going forward. So a point of all this, I know I've got very excited and a bit angry, or at least appear to be a bit angry, is that, there's lots going on and lots of moving parts, and it's really confusing, and I get it. When you're new, it can be really scary. But the more you look at these charts and the more you start to chill out and take a step back and realize what this really means, what is really going on behind the scenes, then it doesn't really matter about the Bitcoin halving and all these different pieces, because it doesn't really take much to move the charts at all, and very few players are actually moving the charts. You just need to get on the right side with them in order to be able to make money in crypto. Now, obviously, I'm not guaranteeing that we won't suddenly see a sell-off and go towards the downside. Whoever knows what other dramatic piece of news will happen, but that piece of news is there to just shake you out the markets. When news drops and it's negative and the market crashes towards the downside, you better not sell, guys, in my opinion, of course, not financial advice. But all you need to realize is when that sell comes in and the spike comes towards the downside is because they're trying to shake you out of the market. And if you haven't sold already, you don't want to sell because they're shaking people out of the market. They can buy back in at a lower price, which means the market price will come back up. On the flip side of things, if good news comes in, you also better not buy, because that's when you get wrecked. And I told people last week or whenever it was that just because this positive piece of news that came in on HBar, and I'll show you the chart for it, I said positive news comes in on HBar, then it's too late. If you haven't been in for that good piece of news and the price bounces, look what happened. It bounced all the way up to here and then suddenly it's come down here. Now, I did say that we could probably have a little roll off into this green buy zone here. I said that maybe there was a chance we'd get into here. Let's see what happens. Really, I think if we have a good solid bounce here, then we could see HBar maybe making a move for this area. And then we're into a very, very exciting move in the future. But ultimately, guys, I don't think there's going to be significantly much more downside, mainly because of what I'm seeing in that Wyckoff schematic. This is where I'm accumulating. This is what I think most people in my community should be doing as well. And if you want to find out more about what I'm accumulating, then subscribe. Now, guys, right now, this video is sponsored by Grape, another coin that is actually potentially going to be launching at a very exciting time, and that is going to be launching sometime next month. Right now, you can pick up Grape here for around $46 per token. And right now on Bitmart, where it's already been launched, it's going to be around $250 to $300 today, which means if you buy it now at $46, then you can theoretically sell it on launch for much more than that. But obviously, this is crypto, it's risky, do your own research. If you go through that link down below, then you'll get an additional 10% in tokens. This is basically a DAG, a direct acyclic graph, working in a similar way to a blockchain, but in a different way that's much quicker and much more complex, allowing it to create 700,000 transactions per second or more, avoiding any bottleneck limitations that you would see in a normal blockchain. This is allowing them to work on things like the metaverse and GameFi, and it's basically moving towards a Web3, combining Web 2 and Web 3 into a Web 4 environment. Tons of information available on their website, guys. Go and check it out, link down below. If you want to find out more, you can find out more about the team, the roadmap, and all sorts of things, and get that discounted link through my description down below if you want to pick up some tokens. But obviously, do your own research. Don't invest money you can't afford to lose. Hope you enjoyed that video, guys. If you did, hit the like button for me. If you're new to the channel, subscribe. See you in the next one.